Hi, I'm Dr. Joanne Smith.
And I'm Dr. Corinda Hankins.
And this is A Pod Full of Pediatrics. Subscribe here for more content.
Or go to onecommunityhealth.org.
Or follow us on social media at One Community Gorge. So this is the one
where we talk about
parenting from school age to adolescence.
So if you noticed on our podcast 15, I think, we were doing parenting really of the little kid, the infant to toddler, preschool years.
Yes, and so now we're kind of like continuing on from like kind of like the early elementary to like 5-ish to adolescents and teenagers, like 17, 18 years old. And the deal is the baseline parenting advice is the same at all ages.
Right, it is. And we talk about a little bit, we're just going to go through those very short things. That is, catch them being good.
Right, positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement of good behavior. It's okay and necessary to say no and to give them boundaries, because boundaries, routines, and schedules really help kids of all ages.
And be physically present whenever able, right? Spend time with your kids, not necessarily constantly interacting, but being there for when they're ready for interaction.
And so not just like physically, like you're there, but actually interact when they want to interact with you. Listen when they talk.
Yes.
And that's actually especially important with older kids, because you might not have that many opportunities.
Right, they get busy.
They do.
So elementary school, this is kind of around 5 till usually around, 10 to 11, depends on the school. And that is the age where they're spending more time outside the house, right? They're going and they're having new experiences without you.
Right. And they want to tell you about all those experiences. So listen.
Just listen. And they're also being faced with things for the first time they have to kind of handle on their own. And instead of just constantly, giving them the answer or jumping in, let them work it through a little bit.
This is where you really do want to catch kids being good as many times as possible. And you really try to focus on the positive and not the negative. This is a time when kids are often really active. They're really having to settle for the first time. Some kids did preschool, some kids didn't. And all of a sudden they're in these big routines at school and they're having to do certain behaviors. And so they come home and they're like a little bit wild and like tired and grumpy. And so all of this stuff is happening. And so you really want to focus on trying to positively reinforce when they are actually asking for your help, asking for your attention, asking for something in a polite and respectful way. And it doesn't have to be, I always kind of think that this is funny in the sense of, you don't have to praise every little thing they do. Right. And you don't have to give them praise that's not valid. Like
they figure that out. They know that is fake.
I know. And when they bring home the scribbly thing, you don't have to say, oh my God, this is amazing illustration.
Right.
You should be an artist. You don't have to do that. But you can say, wow, you seem like you worked really hard on that. Like praise really their effort that they put into things. The enjoyment they find in that effort. That's what you want to do. And it doesn't always have to be like an effusive praise. Like you can like give them a hug. Like if they're
smile at them, give them eye contact.
Like if they're actually quietly coloring like at a table, and you can like go by and hug them. Like this is a positive reinforcement of a really good behavior that they're doing, right? And they really appreciate that and they notice it.
Yes. And this is the time we talked about, setting limits. And when you're setting limits, you're trying to make them understand it's for their better health, right? It's to help them take the next step of, okay, so if you get done with this chore or this homework, whatever, then we'll move on to the next thing. And you're going to do great. We're going to get it done.
That's right. And you still have to say no at times. Like there are things that they can't do that would hurt them, that would have trouble. But you try to balance that no with encouragement and not exaggeration. Right. So again, we're encouraging those and positively reinforcing those behaviors, but really letting them know that here's the boundary. And that's still a boundary we can't cross. And it might be slightly different than the boundary they had in preschool because they're bigger now. But it's still the same one. And that actually exists all the way through teen years.
Right. And constantly giving your kids those safety rails to be like, all right, this is okay. This is an okay behavior inside here. Outside there, we're going to have to talk about it.
Right, exactly. And I think that's really important in the sense of there is still that, like those boundaries that make them feel safe. And we want those there, but we also need to let them kind of explore and figure out how they can be little people.
Exactly. Right? And this is a common thread today is we're going to really encourage you to limit any kind of screen time, but especially in elementary school, being no social media and not letting them have their own phone.
Yeah. I mean, and I think this is so important in the sense of if you can do this from an early age, one of the things we talk about is avoiding power struggles. And especially win-lose battles. And we talked about this a little bit when they were little tiny ones too. It's really hard to win against a 2-year-old.
Right.
It's actually really hard to win against a really mad middle schooler.
Right. Once you get emotional, right, there's no rational thinking and they're not really listening to your words. And they're not going to be able to come to any kind of compromise. So try not to create any areas.
Right. And this is a big area, like media, gaming, time on phone, time on iPads. These are all going to be big areas that often tend to lead to big arguments. And so if you can have really good, and this is something you have to model yourself.
Right.
Very good, like really good sets or routines around when technology is acceptable, what kind of technology, what limits we put on technology, what can they watch? Common Sense Media is a really good
website.
option.
Yeah, just if you're thinking about letting them watch a show or something, a video, like look on there and say, is it appropriate for their age? And what is the content?
Right. And if you kind of set those limits, then you're avoiding a lot of those power struggles that are very difficult and often super time consuming. And I will say that doing it early is easier than doing it later. You can still intervene when they're older, and we'll talk about a little bit about that. But the wait until 8.
Yes, in the 8th grade, not 8 years old.
That's right.
Just to clarify, right? That's a good website. It kind of gives you some ideas how to encourage your kids to be like, it's okay that I don't have my phone. Like there are other things we can do with our time.
That's right, exactly. And then when we do talk, the other thing I talk a lot about is learning responsibility.
Yeah, and kind of I start talking about age 2 is saying kids need chores, right? At 2, they want chores. They want to help you, and we know
it's where they're like cleaning with a cute little
little brush and
like sweeping up after you,
washing the dishes, and they're making more mess than they're actually like helping. But we know that starting jobs young that are jobs that help the whole family, not just their own responsibilities, help their self-esteem in the long term because they realize you people really need me. I am not just decoration. Like I am here for a purpose.
That's right. I am a valid member of this.
Yeah.
Whole
So start it young and keep those responsibilities and chores building as they're age appropriate, as they can handle more things.
That's right. And then because that whole family works together, then they do chores together. But it also, I find like chores and like responsibility charts really helpful at this age, starting in elementary school, for things that they need to do themselves too.
Right.
Like I really found, and you can like, there's so many options online. Yes, you need to use it responsibly, but this is one choice where it's
and
really
you know
good.
what, and get your kid involved. Like have them help pick you out a chart what it's going to look like and what the colors are going to be.
I found like a free one, and we could put they had all of these different images on them, and so they got to pick their image for each week's chart. And then we also got to pick what their chores were going to be this week. And a lot of them were like the family chores, like they had a specific thing that they did for the family that always went on. But then there was these ones they did themselves. And I made them ones that I needed them to do.
Right.
Like I needed them to get up and brush their teeth. I needed them to get dressed. I needed them to come downstairs.
To get to the bus stop on time. That's when I needed them to do. It was kind of a challenge. Like you just got to leave the house by this time or we're going to miss the bus.
That's right. So those were all things that went on their chore chart. And we made them slightly different. And what was cool about it is that once it became routine, so we started the chore chart and then they did it for a month. And then guess what? They were really good at getting up, brushing their teeth, like getting dressed and going, like doing this. And so it didn't have to stay on our chore chart. We got to have other things on our chore chart.
Yes, and at this age, elementary school, they need some more instant gratification, right? So they need some reminder that they did a good job that day. So like a sticker or a stamp on the chart, and then little prizes kind of along the way. And the little prize doesn't have to be something material, right? It can be like, hey, we're going to read an extra book at bedtime. You do get extra little bit of screen time today because you got it all done. But again, these are things that are preset ahead of time, so they're not being negotiated. Like,
right.
these are already known.
I get an extra 15 minutes because I did it faster. Nope.
Nope, that's not on the chart. I like to write things on the chart so we can go, let's go back and read the chart. What did we decide on when we made this chart together?
That's right. And I always like, if things around school, like turning in homework or doing homework, like that reading that they need to be, if that's something that is a struggle, make that part of the chart, right? And then the important part is that this can be stuff that they can just do by themselves. But if you know it's on there and hey, they haven't done it yet, let's sit down and do it together, right? You know they're actually doing it. And it actually is, they get extra recognition for it. It takes that at the parts and then really teaches them responsibility. Like, this is something I need to do. And it makes them feel good.
Right. And this is part of, being parents, is you have to help their self-esteem. They are growing brains, right? These kids are growing and their brains are expanding, and you need to help them feel confident that they can do these things, right? By letting them do them.
Let them, this is kind of hard to get all this done, and that's okay. It's okay to expect hard things for our kids to do, and to recognize that, hey, I can accomplish this. Like, it gives them such a feeling of, like we talked about, value and good self-esteem. Yeah. The other part I talk about responsibility is that it's not just responsibility for like those things, those chores, those activities, but for choices that
for your own behavior, right? Your own behavior, consequences happen, and you chose this path, and so here's the consequences that occurred.
Right, and it is really important that they need to take responsibility for those choices. So, again, they don't complete their chore chart. They don't get whatever
the pre-negotiated prize.
And it is, you literally don't give it. You have to follow through with that consequence. It's not, okay, well, if you just finish this one, we'll go ahead and do it.
Even though it's sometimes easier to give it, right? It'd be way easier just to be like, yeah, go over there and watch TV.
Yeah.
No, then they're never going to take responsibility for the things that we expect of them.
That's right. Exactly. And so the other part is that they're sometimes going to make, like everyone does, not so good choices in their life, at school, at those types of things. I talked about my son who, in his first year of elementary school, had a situation where he got kind of followed along a pack and made a really poor decision and ended up really hurting the feelings of another child, right? And I can remember, the teachers were all, he's such a good kid. He totally didn't mean to do this. Yeah. We talked to him about it. He feels awful. I think that's all you need to do. And I was like, actually, it's not. He really needs to understand that behavior, that choice he made, hurt somebody.
And has real consequences.
And has real consequences, not for that child, right? And so part of what we're teaching them is to be kind, productive, and empathetic adults, right? And so this is one of those ways where we can do that. And so we sat down together and we talked about what would he want if he was the other child, and how we could kind of make that situation a little better. And we decided he was going to write a letter to the other child. It wasn't a very long letter. He was in kindergarten.
Yeah, right.
Mostly, I'm sorry.
Yes. And mostly you having to spell the words and have to do it, right? Yeah.
But he had to. Then we made a date where he had to give him that letter in person. And then we decided that we talked about the fact that sometimes when these things happen, it's because other people are not presenting in the same way, and that makes it easy for people around them to make fun of them or do something
or notice things that are different about them.
And so from that point, we were like, well, let's learn more about him. Right. Let's kind of try to become friends. And so that was part of it, is that he decided to invite him for a play date. And that's the whole point of it, is that we take these things that happen in life and we try to help our children learn things from them.
Right.
And that is really what parenting is about. And we will make a ton of mistakes.
Absolutely. No, there's no perfect parents. We definitely made mistakes. But you take these your mistakes or the kids' mistakes.
Huge mistakes at times, but
you take the mistakes that you made or the kid makes, and you talk about them and you learn from them, and try to avoid the embarrassment or the remorse becoming the main feeling from it, right? What we're doing is we're going to move on. This is not labeling you as a person. This is just labeling that choice.
Well, and it's actually label our own, Like, so taking responsibility means that you actually take responsibility when you make a poor choice too.
Yeah.
Like, model that behavior for your child. Like, hey, I said a bad word. Okay,
Yeah.
I am really sorry. Like, put that money in the bad word jar or whatever. But you have to follow through on whatever those things. If you are asking them to do these things and then you do them and don't take responsibility for your own actions, it teaches them that when I'm older, I can get away with things.
Absolutely.
I don't have to worry about that when I'm older. But actually, we want to model good behavior we want to do throughout life. And so we'll always make mistakes. We'll always not do that behavior. Sometimes things get away from us.
And it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy of like, okay, if I always say bad things, I'm always going to be a bad person. No, right? We can move on and you can model that behavior.
And you just say, I made a mistake there. I'm really sorry. And I should own up to that. And then you teach them how to do it. And that works great for both you and them. Plus they recognize that you're being honest about it.
Right.
Kind of gets into what we talk a lot about at this age.
Yes. So this is a time when, the kids really start to talk about fair and unfair too, right? Like, this is when they're realizing that, when they're little, they feel like everything is just going to go their way. And then they get to elementary school and they're like, wait, everything's not going my way. Like, I'm working hard and I'm doing all the right things, yet I'm not winning. I'm not getting the best grade. I'm not the fastest runner.
I didn't get that Dragon Dinero for that thing, but they gave it to somebody else. Like, that's not fair, Mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. And then, this is a good age to start playing games, right? Like to play board games or video games. Is that the thing in your family to do? And learn that no matter what you do, sometimes the luck is just going to go to someone else. They're just going to win.
It's things aren't always fair. Things aren't always right. And that life itself is that way. And it's that way for everybody, right? We can work hard all the way through life and not get the job we wanted to get. And learning that at this age is really important. It is an age where they are very black and white. They are learning concrete thinking. It is really difficult concept. So that's the other thing you should realize about your child. They're not trying to flip out when things are fair or unfair. It is literally their little brains thinking, wait a second, there's gray?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
There's another color? Like, oh my gosh.
I don't like that color. Right.
That color seems horrible.
Yes. But gray's actually an acceptable color. It's a nice dove gray. Like, there's different kinds, right? And so support your kids and talk about it when they're so upset about these things that don't go their way. And sometimes these unfair situations lead to kids lying. Right?
That's right.
And all kids lie. There have been a lot of studies to show that absolutely all kids lie. And there's lots of different reasons they lie. Probably one of the most common ones is it just takes more time sometimes to tell the truth. It really is just like more of a conversation and they don't feel like having it.
That's right. But some of it is that, especially as you're coming out of that preschool to elementary area, they still think big.
Right.
Like, and especially that preschool, like that young one, like they truly can't remember that much. So lots of times when you ask them things, they're just going to make it up.
They're just going to, just make some great imaginary story. I was the fastest runner in the whole school today. You're in kindergarten. I'm pretty sure that's not true, right?
Right.
But in their head, maybe it is.
That is. And so sometimes it is just them like replacing stuff they don't remember with other things. And again, that's not necessarily bad. It means they have great imaginations and those types of things. What I talk a lot about is that if there are specific things that you do not want them to lie about, don't put them in the situation to lie.
Absolutely not. Don't set them up for failure.
That's right.
That's just a good word of advice in general.
Yeah. So if you walk into a room and your child is the only person in the room and something's broken, you don't have to say, who broke this?
Because we all know.
Yeah.
We all know.
They pretty much know who broke it, right? So it's like, what was the cartoon?
Yeah, little family circus. You remember that? Like in the Sunday comics, whatever. They did the little Jeffy. I always think it was Jeffy would like break the vase and his mom would walk in. Who broke the vase? And they'd all these like little imaginary people around the room. Not me. Oh, not me broke it. Okay.
Yeah. So not me was a real person. And it still is in their minds, that not me person. So don't ask for the not me question. Just say, okay, here's what it is. And this happens a lot with siblings, right? You walk in, they were fighting, something's broken or something's destroyed, and you're like, who did this? It doesn't really matter. No. Like the action that they were having together caused this problem. So how are we going to fix it?
Right.
So instead of saying like, oh, not like who did this, now you have to be responsible or you're going to get a consequence. Instead, sit down with them and say, let's figure out what to do about this, because this vase or this thing was really important to mommy.
Right.
It makes me really sad. Like, and I can't replace it maybe because it was something irreplaceable.
Right. But be honest about your emotions. It's okay to be upset about it. But if you can't talk about it without getting angry at that point, you just kind of say, okay, we need to talk about it later.
Yep. And then come back and actually discuss it and say, okay, we can't fix it all the way, but we can make it better. How can we make it better? And let them come up with ideas. And the best idea is not that you need to go buy another one off Amazon.
No, that's fine. It's probably not. It might be. I don't know. We don't know what broke, but most of the time it's not.
Well, and if that is the answer, then how are we going to pay for that?
They're going to have to help you raise some funds for
That's
that.
right. Raise some funds for it, right? Just mommy
GoFundMe.
using that special card is not going to be
No.
the only answer.
You know, and so that's kind of like some of the reasons they lie. One is they don't want to disappoint you, right?
Yeah.
That's a huge reason kids lie, is they really know you're going to be sad or upset, and they really don't want to disappoint you.
It is a huge reason, and that's about everything. You ask, did they do their homework? And they were like, yeah, I did it. And then when they come to sign it, they're like, oh, actually, I didn't do it. And it's not really because they want whatever it is that they were going to do. It's because in the first place, they didn't want to disappoint you. They know you're going to be sad that they didn't do what they said they were supposed to do. And so they're trying to kind of figure out a way to get out of it. Yeah. And that's because they feel bad for you too.
Right. Yes. Well, and that's what kind of when you've caught your kids in a lie, you're just trying to analyze what was their intention, right? Are they trying to be evasive and get out of the situation, or are they just having this tall tale? And I recommend parents that if you know it's a situation where they're just making a bad choice by lying, it's something kind of serious, give them a truth check, right? Just say, hey, I hear what you're saying. I'm going to walk away, give you a few minutes, and I'm going to come back and ask you the same question again. If you change your mind about how you're going to tell me the truth, then we'll just call it a truth check and you won't get in trouble. Mm-hmm. Right. Give them a chance to kind of reconsider their answer.
And it's especially if you know that is a lie, right?
Right.
And then if they still persist and you're like, actually, I know that that's not true because I saw it or whatever, right? Again, the best thing is actually not to put them in this situation. If you did see it and you know they did it, let's just fast forward to I know you did this. What can we do about it?
What can we do to remedy it?
But if you can't do that for some other reason, then there has to be a consequence for not only the action but for the lie.
Right. And I always try to say punishment fits the crime, right? So if they're lying about, I did my homework, and they did not do their homework, then, hey, let's sit down. You're going to do your homework now. I'm going to hang out here in the same room so I can be here because maybe it was hard and you needed some help through it.
But you also don't get that treat for doing homework at the end of the night.
Right. Or you don't get to go do the thing you were going to go do that you
hoped you would get to do because you lied about doing it in the first place. Yeah. I'm happy to help with you. I'm happy to help solve through this work and work through this problem, but it is not okay that you lied.
Right.
The other thing is recognize that they are modeling you and that we lie a lot.
Yeah, everybody lies, right? And granted, most of the situations we lie as an adult is because you don't have enough time to have that conversation, right? In the grocery store, you're gonna be like, I'm fine, even though you're not fine, right? Or it's gonna hurt someone's feelings.
Right.
Empathy is a big part of why you lie as an adult, is because you're like, I can't tell you the truth right now because that is gonna crush you.
Right.
So we need to talk about those situations with our kids.
Because they do notice it. They'll come out after and say, Mommy, you lied. That's really bad. And then you have to explain that actually, you're right. I didn't tell the truth, but I also I didn't tell the truth because I really didn't want to hurt that person. And sometimes that's what we do as an adult, is try not to hurt somebody. And then recognize that they'll totally use that on you.
Absolutely. Right.
But that's okay. That's them figuring it out, right? That's the whole thing, is that they're learning that
it's a gray world.
It's a gray world.
Especially gray outside right now. But, there's not a perfect truth lie. There's some in between where we have to be conscious of what we're telling people.
Right.
And then the other part of that is sometimes as a parent, you're distracted, right? Yeah. So you're doing something like checking out the grocery store, right? It was always a classic one, and where I'd be checking out the grocery stores and my kids would go, blah, 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 and I'm talking to the checkout person. I'd be like, yeah. And next I know they're sitting on the horse at the grocery store. They have like one of those mechanical horses, and they'd be like, I need more money. I'm like, I said yes to the horse apparently. And I didn't remember that I said yes to the horse. And so I can't challenge that because they said, you said we could go. And that would be a lie.
And then do recognize that is sometimes what happens. Like, you're like, I do not remember saying that. And they will tell you, well, you were doing this and this and this. And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I probably did say it.
If they can quote you exact lines, they probably heard it.
So recognize that that's what's happening sometimes, and that you do have to follow through too. Try not to lie to your kids on purpose, because they notice and they will use that. And so it's really about, again, what you really want are your children to grow up to be productive, kind, and really honest adults. And a lot of that is how we model that behavior ourselves.
And in my opinion, talking about things like Santa Claus, that is truth, because there is that spirit that Santa does come every year. And I'm just going to leave it with that. Okay,
we can talk a lot about
but we don't know who's listening, so I'm just going to say that's not a lie. So middle school time, same things, right? Be there for your kids. Try to keep the routines. Be part of your lives. Volunteer when you can, and try to listen without talking.
Right. Sometimes. I think this is really important at this age. But I also think that, like, the volunteer, and we didn't kind of talk as much about that for elementary, but it is actually really important. And I think a lot of parents know this. Like, we show up for our elementary kids. We try to go to school. We try to go to their music performances. We try to go to their sporting events. And actually keeping kids engaged and active, huge part of parenting. I just have to tell you, if kids are too busy to do something bad, they don't do it. It is like that thing. If you're keeping them busy. And
routine helps, as we talked about.
Yeah, right? Routine helps.
And that continues on past elementary school, right? Middle school and high school too.
But a lot of parents don't think it does. And that was the thing we do this for elementary kids. And then they're like, oh, my kid doesn't want me at middle school. Or my kid doesn't want me at the high school. They would get upset if I was there. So one, they might actually say that they'll get upset, but actually they love it.
It's not true. Yeah.
It's not true. They do want you to be a part of their lives.
It's a lie.
It is a lie. But not even a lie, they know.
No, they just think that because that's what maybe some other kids have said.
That's right. And they're trying to, so much of middle school is peers, right?
Right.
So you are not their most important person anymore. Their peers are. And they really don't want to be embarrassed by you, which you will embarrass them.
Exactly.
That is life.
And it's just when that time in their life, they start to listen to other people's opinions. And the problem is those other people's opinions are not frontally lobe developed opinions either, right? So the people influencing them also are not making the most rational choices. So.
That's right. And so don't take offense. Yes. That's the first thing. And still show up. Go to their activities, go to their events, volunteer if you can, and volunteer all the times you can. Put that on your calendar. Let them know you're going to be there, and then do go.
Actually go.
Don't get so caught up in your life. If there's any way you can make it, show up, because that is actually one of the most important things to have kids at this age. If they know you're there, that you care about them, that you love them, that you're willing to make time for them in your life, even if they don't want to make time for you in yours, that is huge. Or in theirs, it is a huge thing for children.
Yes. Well, and we talk about social media again. Huge difference at middle school what they're being exposed to is because even if you've restricted what they're watching at home, they're watching their friends' phones. They're going to their friends' houses and watching their screens. So as much as you can, talk to your kids about what they're seeing, right? Talk to the other kids' parents and kind of get a common plan of this is what we're going to let them do at our house,
right? So
that you know what's happening.
And it is really good to set limits, and that is and keep that spending time with them. Keep your routines, keep your dinners, keep your activities. Really, again, be part of their lives and listen without talking all the time. And recognize this is so hard for me. It has been one of my hardest things as a parent is that I am a problem solver. That's kind of why
we're kind of task oriented. That's part of our job, right?
It's part of our job.
We get it done.
And so when my kids come and talk to me, I like to say, oh, well, you could try this or you could try this. And it's really been a hard thing as they've grown older for me to say, wait a second, you don't actually want me to tell you what to try, do you? And they're like, no, actually, we just want to talk to you. And take a step back and just listen. And then a lot of times at the end of it, they will let you kind of make suggestions. They might like, whatever, that would never work, Mom. That happens a lot.
Yes, there's a lot of, you don't even understand, right? And maybe I don't understand, but I'm just going to tell you from my own experience what I've seen.
Right.
And that's so much of parenting, is that it's an ongoing relationship, right? It's not something that ever ends. I mean, starts the day you give birth and it ends when one of you is gone, right?
That's right.
And so you're just constantly, even if this conversation doesn't end at a point you want it to end up today, don't worry. I always say, put a bookmark in it, talk about it tomorrow, right? It can be an ongoing conversation. And
realize that those things you say matter. Like, I really think it's one of those fascinating parts about it, in the sense of, I just listened to some of my kids, and then they'll kind of go through and I'll say something and they're like, whatever, that's not right, Mom. You don't know what you're talking about. And then like a year later, they'll be like, so you were kind of right. Just a little bit, like, right? And I kind of wish I'd listened a little more, because it would have stopped me from having to go through some of this. And it's okay. Don't say, yeah, I know, I told you so. Don't do that.
No, people really don't like to hear that.
No.
Even though you really, really want to say it.
And instead say, I'm really sorry you're hurting, or that and that was all I wanted to try to avoid for you. But sometimes no matter what we do, it's still going to happen. And that's, again, something we work through in life.
And when we're talking about interaction with your kids, you try to stay calm, right? And
oh my gosh, that's the hardest thing.
And if you're in a point where you just can't, either you've got stuff going on or what they're saying is getting you upset, you really need to take a step back and have some kind of word that stops this conversation right now, so that you can come back and both talk in a rational manner. And I always try to, encourage kids, if they don't agree with their parents, if they're being angry and yelling, parents don't hear anything but their attitude. They don't only hear they don't hear the words. They're never going to agree with you. So we, like in our house, we just say green pickle juice, which is just random, but enough to be like, oh, somebody needs to put a pause.
So we said, I said, like, whenever this would happen in ours, I would sing like the Frozen song, and I'd say, let it go, let it go. Really irritated the heck out of my kids. But what the funny part is that, like, as they're being irritated, they start laughing, and I start laughing, and it resets, right? Yeah. Like we like all kind of like reset, because Mom's being silly and stupid and really not like taking its measure. And like that is, again, like it kind of resets the conversation. It's like, we're just going to really talk about this later. We're going to let it go right now and talk about this later.
Right. When everyone can be rational about it. Middle school is a big time of bullying too. Right. And some of that is that peer influence, that kids are trying to make themselves feel better. And sometimes they think, well, if I make someone else feel worse, then I'll feel better. And we all know that never works. It absolutely never works. I hope everybody knows that.
Yeah, it just makes everybody feel bad. And that is never the answer for this. But the important part is that you really want to listen when your kids need to talk about it. And then if it is something that is dangerous or happening or really going to affect like them or someone that they're seeing being bullied, like to find out a good way to tell people about it.
Right.
Whether that's encourage them to tell a teacher or counselor or principal even, but something that's happening. And talking, if they don't feel comfortable coming with you ever, they're never going to talk about that.
Right. And when we talk about bullying, it's the bullier and the bully and the bystander. They're all involved in the situation and they all feel terrible about it. Right. So kind of really talking about your kids, if you're any part of that circle, you need to talk to someone, because this situation is never going to make anyone happy.
No.
It could really hurt someone.
Yeah, and it is really important to recognize that that a lot of times the bullier is doing it for other reasons too, and they might need help as much as the one being bullied.
Yeah.
And so letting people know is really important.
And your kids' teachers, right? You need to back them up, because sometimes your kids will say they're mean, they're not fair, and you might be like, but at this point they're your teacher and they're going to be your teacher the whole year. So let's talk about ways we can make this interaction better. You don't have to agree that those statements are correct, that you think that too, but you can just agree with your kid that that's how they feel.
That's right. Recognize their feelings. Like say, I can tell you're really upset about this. Like, and I get it. Like, this was a really upsetting event, right? And let's talk about like what else we could do if this is continuing to happen, right?
Yeah.
Because they do have to have that teacher for a year.
Right. And, you know, so much of growing up is learning how to get along with different people. Right. I mean, that's how siblings are for. That is what your, interactions with is you have to realize I don't have to agree with everybody. But I have to kind of exist in the situation and get the best I can out of it.
That's right. And a lot of times they're just not understanding the style. It's not actually that that teacher is a bad teacher or that that teacher hates them. It's just a different style.
Right.
Like they're used to a teacher who does this, right? And this teacher doesn't. They don't grade the same way as all my other teachers did. They don't do things in exactly the way that my last teacher that I loved did. And for them, that's a whole new thing to learn. And recognizing, especially in middle school, where they're all of a sudden having lots of different teachers who actually expect kind of different things of them and like grade in slightly different ways. And also, like, if you have a really talkative child or a really active child, their way of dealing with that might be different than the teacher that they had in elementary school. And it's all something that they have to learn. And it has nothing to do with that teacher not liking them, right? And that's the big thing that you want to get out of it is that let's figure out ways that we can
make the situation better. But don't suggest it for them. Let them figure it out themselves and just maybe like give them some options to think about. Because again, if you decide things for them, then they're never going to accept the responsibility of doing it themselves.
Right. And actually, this is a really important part too, is that I think sometimes we're like, oh, well, that teacher just expects too much of you and it's too hard. And I'm just going to let them know that you can't do that or that you're not going to turn that in. Or we'll just accept that, like grade that's not so good, right? Because it's too hard for you. Kids don't actually want to hear that.
No.
They really don't. They want to actually be able to succeed and do hard things. And we want them to learn to do hard things. That's part of growing up.
Yeah. And, and kind of, we talk about different kids have different goals. I mean, people have different goals, right? So they don't have to get the best grade in class to succeed in that class.
Right.
They just have to maybe conquer some concept that they're stuck on, right? That's the way of success for them in that particular class.
And often that's what the teacher's trying to show them. Like, and they're just like, like that's the thing is that for a teacher, the grade might not be as important as the child actually learning the concept.
As it should be for all.
As it should be for all. So, so recognize that about the teachers, give them the support you need. And if you're really having trouble, go and talk to them, but really recognize that they're trying to like work and help your child to also learn new things and do hard things. So, it's really good.
So adolescence, that late middle school, high school, again, same thing. Be part of their life, be present, be there when they're around to give them opportunities to talk to you.
Yeah. This was the one where I know I said this in like the puberty thing, but teens often will go away. They'll like kind of go to their
lock
room,
themselves in the room. They're pushing you away, just like toddlers.
Yeah, they do it. And so this is a time where like if you go and ask how their day was or ask them to talk to you, they will totally ignore you or tell you to go away. But if you just go and sit and do stuff like with them, a lot of times they just get bored and talk to you. Like they'll be like, fine, if you're sitting there.
If you're here anyway, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And that actually is a great way to start conversations without starting a conversation, right? Like, and a lot of times those are the conversations that kind of mean the most. And they'll be like, 20 minutes in, they'll be like, there was this thing that happened and I kind of wanted to tell you about it, right? And that's a lot of times how those conversations start. And They're the best ones to have with your teens. So,
and kind of, the expectations for chores and responsibilities grows, obviously. I'm a big fan of late middle school, early high school, having them learn how to cook, right? In my family, everybody starting at age 12 had one night a week that they cooked. So everyone took turns. And then you start out with like sandwiches and salads, not really high expectations, right? But then you end up with some really good cooks by the end of it. So, I'm going to encourage you to do that. And it's part of them understanding they need to be an essential part of how the house runs.
Right. And I think praise them for the hard work. And like, I'm also a big fan of not paying for kids for grades. For me, it's not, again, the grade is so important. It's the fact how hard they work in order to get there. And so some teachers are not going to give
they grade differently.
The highest grade. They grade differently. And what you really want is to know that they worked as hard as they could and they did their best. And that's what you're praising for.
And allowances are fine, right? But allowances are based on, responsibilities, effort, expectations. It shouldn't be based on what is your final grade at the end, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't want everyone to think they need to win a prize.
Right.
We'll move beyond that.
And it's modeling hard work is so important for this. And I think we need to do it as parents too. I talked about this all the time with my kids, is that I was like, life is work, man.
Yeah.
I never started.
But hopefully you're finding some works that fulfill you and that you enjoy, right?
Like this podcast is actually work.
It's actually work, but we enjoy it because we're hanging out together. We spend hours in preparing this, but we enjoy each other's company, so it's fine.
I know, and we actually learn things from it, and learning is fun.
Yes.
And like doing these types of things are fun. Hard work can be really fun. And I think that when we model that behavior for our children, they are more likely to say, hey, I can do this. Like, I know it's going to be hard. Life's not always easy. Life's not always fair.
Not always fair. And kind of why I try to talk to teenagers about is it's unreasonable to think you'll be happy every day. Right? Yes. There are moments in your life, we hope every day, that you feel happy. You're with people you like to be with. You have a moment, you're like, wow, that was great. But to be constantly happy is actually not a real goal. Right. And the people who have that as a goal, they're not living real life.
And in fact, one of the things that there's a quote, and I don't know who said it, but it's like often happiness is a byproduct of working towards our goals. Right? Like really finding those things that we want most out of life and working towards them. And happiness is actually just like what happens along the way. Like we're like, hey, like I want to be a pediatrician. This is really hard work, but guess what?
Yeah,
there were lots of happy moments. I got to be with awesome little kids all the time,
and big kids
who like surprised me and taught me things and like really made my life full of joy. Right,
yeah.
But was I happy when I did a 36-hour shift and
Nope.
I was tired? No, of course
Actually,
I wasn't.
when it was over, you were happy.
Yeah, I was happy when it was over.
There's a sense of it, yeah.
But yes, I was happy that I completed all the hard work. But yeah, it is like I think that's super important. We cannot always be happy, but we can try to work towards those things that we think will help us be content.
Be content, satisfied, right?
Satisfied.
And talking to your kids about your sense of satisfaction with your job, with your life, with your talk about your relationships with friends and trying to model good relationships as they kind of negotiate these relationships.
Safe and respectful relationships.
Safe and respectful.
Especially for middle schoolers and teens. I think this is super important. It's one of the things I talk about in the office a lot, but because they're starting not to just have friendships, but more intimate relationships where they have significant others, right?
Or just really close friends that they spend a lot of time with.
Right. And you want those friends to also think about safe and respectful behavior. And if you have a friend or a partner who keeps pushing you to do something you don't want to do, that by definition is not a good friend, not a good partner, right? If they are really making you feel bad about yourself or bad about your choices where you're trying to stay healthy and safe, those choices, if they're making you feel bad about safe and healthy choices, they're not good friends.
Right, and all these building blocks for this started in those early years, right? Trying to work on your kids' self-esteem and their confidence to stand up to that person and say, I'm not comfortable here. I don't like this. I don't want to do this. And whether that ends the friendship or not is to be decided, but giving them the confidence to kind of give a boundary.
Right. And they can set their own boundaries now. This is where you were setting their boundaries. Now they get to set some boundaries.
So you still have some boundaries, right? Like maybe the yard got a lot bigger. Like instead of the little playpen, we've got like a whole yard now for them to play in. Maybe a football field even, right?
And there still has to be consequences when they break those boundaries.
Exactly. And again, these are boundaries that are not surprise to them. Since you've been working on it this whole time, you're like, well, you shouldn't be surprised that you are going to have some consequences for the fact you stayed out later than we talked about, or you went to some place that we said you shouldn't go to that place. You used a substance that we said that was not a good substance for you to put in your body. And we've talked about that ahead of time.
That's right. And if you set these expectations, and again, set them with your child, set them before middle school, set them each grade if you want. But the idea is that you're setting really some good boundaries on things that keep them safe and healthy. And then also on social media and those types of things.
And so screen exposure at this point is going to happen whether you like it or not by the time they're in adolescence, just because it's a big part of school at that point and in middle school too. And kind of some studies have shown that, yes, the more you're on social media and the more you're on a screen, there are some negative consequences.
And they're really funny because it's an hour and a half, it's kind of flat. But then as you go up after an hour and a half, and it's direct,
exponential growth.
Exponential growth,
like bacteria.
With anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation. It's huge as you hit that hour and a half mark. So, set some expectations. Again, a lot of those are boundaries that they like to have. They're going to be frustrated with, and they're going to try to push on. But having those ahead of time is really helpful.
Yeah, so kind of say after an hour and a half, okay, get off. Do something, eat something, have a real conversation with a real person.
Talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be me.
Yes.
It would be cool if it was me, but it doesn't have to be, right?
Yeah.
It can be someone else.
Yeah.
But talk to a real person, not a bot.
And kind of getting that, we're not talking about your total screen time because we know that's usually a waste of breath to talk about total screen time with a teenager. They're just going to block you out. But just talking about good use of the screen time. We're going to take breaks. This is the content that is safe and respectful for you to see. Talk to me about what you're seeing. What are you playing? What's on your phone?
Okay. And then and I kind of say trying to limit that social media as much as you can. If the horse is already out of the barn, you've already allowed it.
Like an idiot. I know. You hardly ever do that.
And I did it correctly.
Oh, you did. Awesome.
So anyway, that horse is running away. We want him
there
to
you
come
go.
back.
That's your real idiom. The horse is running away. Lasso it and
bring it back in, right? So how are we going to do that? So how do we do that with a teenager? Because just saying, I'm sorry,
no more.
I'm shutting down your social media. I'm taking your phone. Kids are going to freak out.
Yes, and they may get more anxious and depressed with that when they lose contact with all of their friends, right? So when you're already at that point where you're like, whoa, this is too much, we're in a bad place, you need to peel it back. You need to cut down the amount of time. You need to really have tight reins of what actually
we're just gonna beat this horse.
It's not a dead horse, though. We're not going to be a dead horse. We're going to bring the content in to things that we're both, that's something that they'd be willing to watch, that you're like, this is safe and respectable, and we're going to talk about it every time.
That's right. Just really, it's really talking and communicating. And the more you can kind of communicate that we're doing this because we just want you to be safe and healthy.
Yeah.
Right. And here's the thing. If it gets beyond the point where you're scared for them, where things are gone to a point where you're not communicating and you're really worried that they are depressed or anxious, or there are things that you stepping in is not going to be the end all. That's not going to fix the problem. Get help.
Get help. Yes.
Go to your pediatrician, go to your family medicine doctor, go to a counselor.
Right. There are professionals out there that this is what they do. They're good at it, right?
They are.
And, the help can be for you. It can be for your child. It doesn't have to be a lifelong commitment. And I always kind of remind teens who don't want to talk to someone in therapy, they're in control of the session. If they're not ready to talk about something, don't make that person talk to them about it. Right? Don't make them talk. I don't know how to say that. Anyway, the teens control what they want to talk about it so they can take it at their own pace, because I've had a lot of teens be forced to talk about things they're not ready to process yet, and then they don't ever want to go back.
That's right.
Can I find a therapist that's going to help form a relationship?
And the relationship is the most important part of that.
The trust.
It is. And then, as we talked about the things happening, it is really important that if you have set those consequences, so you've done all these things, you've set these routines, you've set these expectations, follow through on the consequences. This is a lot of times where parents make mistakes, where we kind of say, oh, again, they were sad that day, or they didn't really mean to break so much curfew. You set a curfew for a reason. My son and I had really big arguments about this, right? Like I had a curfew and I said, and he's like, but I'm a good kid. I'm not going to like drink. I'm not going to do drugs. I make great grades. I work hard. Like, he's like, I'm a perfect child. Why can't I have?
I can see him saying that.
And he did. Like, I'm like, first of all, nobody's a perfect child. I'm not a perfect parent. But he's like, why do I have to have this like ridiculously early curfew? To him, it was not ridiculously early, but to him, it was ridiculously early. And I was like, because I love you and I want you to stay safe. And guess what? I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about you being on the road with all these people who aren't making good decisions and aren't being safe.
Right.
Like, this is where I'm a parent. And unfortunately, you live in my house.
Yeah.
And this is my rule. And if I said he was going to have consequences, I followed through on the consequence.
Right.
So it was annoying to him.
It is so annoying, and it's annoying to have that conversation again and again, because as they get older, you will find the conversations become a little circular.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
They keep bringing up the same point, and they're trying to break you down, but you just have to be like, you know what? This is where we decided. We can reassess it next year when you're older.
That's right.
6 months or whatever.
And I love that my son was always like, he was really funny, because we also had no social media, and he was the one that said, you stunted my social growth.
Oh, he seems so stunted, I'm telling you.
But the thing is that he's going to have all those opportunities. And it's funny because now in college, he doesn't do as much of it. And it is, and I feel like that was because we kind of did set limits, and he understood by the time he was older, how to use things responsibly. And so he didn't fall into that rabbit hole of doing it really inappropriately. But
so back to your perfect child. There is no perfect child.
There's
no perfect parent, right? And parenting is the toughest job you'll ever have, and it never stops.
But it's the toughest job you'll ever love.
It is. It is an amazing thing, and you don't love every minute, but you love it.
That's right.
Yeah.
You will love it overall. And it is really hard, and it doesn't. Like, I still worry about my children off at college, and they still call me and talk to me about things. It's really hard not to still try to solve their problems.
Don't solve their problems.
I know.
Just be there for them. And
be there.
As your kids grow, you think, they're not with me all the time. It's going to be less work and it's going to be easier. Not true.
Mm-mm.
Different things come up different ages, and you're even busier than you were before. And parenting gets harder. I mean, at the beginning, you're just trying to keep them alive, right? Make sure they don't fall off something.
I kind of feel like that's just at the end too. Like, we're just trying to keep them alive.
But then as they get older, you have to teach them like morals and ethics. It's so much more work, right? And then and you kind of follow them through back to being like, I'm just trying to keep you safe.
That's right. And then the part that I think is really the most important part about parenting is like, be kind to yourself and your child. Yeah. And then figure out what you want most as a family. Like, how do you want them to be? Who do you like? What kind of adult do you want them?
Do you want to hang out with them when they're adult? That's what I used to think. I'm like, do you want to be friends with them later? I need to help, figure that out.
That's right.
And
That's
I
right.
do like them.
And just remember, again, no perfect parents, no perfect parenting.
Except for your son.
Except for
he's a perfect child.
He's a perfect child. He thought so.
Yeah.
But we hope that these tips will help you keep your elementary, middle school, and teenager safe, happy, and healthy.
I'm Dr. Joanne Smith.
And I'm Dr. Corinna Hankins. And this is A Pod Full of Pediatrics.